Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Sinocchi from JPMorgan Chase. I'm head of disability inclusion, and I'm thrilled to be talking to all of you at the American Council of the Blind. Let me tell you a little bit about me first before we get into some of the details here that I'd love to share with you. I joined the firm about 4 years ago after retiring from the IBM Corporation. And I'm really excited about this year, this month, because we're celebrating the 30th anniversary of the ADA. Um, as part of my journey, I wanted you to know that I was 25 years old when I broke my neck body surfing at Condado Beach in Puerto Rico. Despite my injury, I've never been unemployed in about 40 years. I've held full-time jobs for two great companies, and I'm happy to be here today. I'm also, believe it or not, married to my wife Maggie of 32 years, and we have two children, Danielle and Jimmy, and two granddaughters. We also have a wedding coming up for my son next year. And so this is a very exciting time for us as a family. But I want you to know that we share experiences with all of you, and as able-bodied people share experiences. And this is a key point in terms about disability inclusion. But now, a little bit about the times we're in. We are going through some unusual times with COVID-19, as well as the issue of racism in this country and probably around the world. We all know there's a huge impact on people with disabilities on top of the challenges we face daily. You know, we're stuck at home, we're trying to get to work, transportation is a burden, working from home is difficult but not impossible. But at the same time, we see some silver linings here. A few weeks ago, we reached out to our nonprofit disability partners by segment. We contacted the blind, the deaf, the mobility impaired, the Association for People with Disabilities, and a number of other folks to get their view on what has COVID done for them in terms of resilience and what has hurt this community. And including the American Council of the Blind, we got your feedback, and let me share with you what we've learned from you and a few other people. And before I do that, I want you to know that the firm did this because they want to know the impact on our customers, on our employees, in terms of what's worked, what hasn't worked, and are there opportunities through COVID where we could help our disabled people going in the future. So a lot of folks came back, talked about new forms of discrimination. Managers might be reluctant to hire someone with a health condition who may have a greater risk of COVID-19 and then not be able to work and maybe drive up their medical costs. We all know this is a benchmark in terms of the industry where because we're disabled, people look at us as medical magnets, like always try, always sick, can't get to work, things like that. But you and I know that these are myths. Secondly, we heard about personnel medical care, medical support, you know, the lack of getting therapy, home health aides, doctor visits, getting groceries is seriously curtailed. And the cost of care, again, become a factor. How do we get people into work if the subways are not working or the buses are not working or we're surrounded by protests? So all these things affect us more than they would affect able-bodied people. The third point I want to talk about is accessibility issues. Many people with disabilities lack access to broadband, internet, and may not have the tech devices to, for the support that they need to get to work or do work at home. That's become a huge factor for people with disabilities as they try to get to work or work from home as best they could. Again, many people with disabilities rely on public transportation systems, which now offer limited service and represent an exposure risk. Transportation remains a difficult issue for the blind community as well, particularly during COVID. And you know it as well as I do. Transportation has been a bane for people with disabilities over the last 30 years. One bright spot that you, the American Council of the Blind, told us about was that changes created by the pandemic can open a significant door for people with disabilities. What we found at Chase was that our work from home program, as we move people out of the office and into their homes with enhanced bandwidth from our company's technology, has worked very well. Attendance was better. People are online longer. People are available, and people have been committed to work. And I guess this is the silver lining as a result of COVID, because people were probably more able to work up earlier, go to bed later, but get the work done without skipping a beat. So I think that that was very important. With that, I'd like to share a little about our work at JPMorgan Chase. So we're closely following these issues with COVID and people with disabilities because we want to recruit, hire, and promote our people in the business, but also to leadership positions. We want more people with disabilities at our company. And I want to make this very clear, and some of you may have heard this from me before. We don't hire people because they're disabled. We hire them because they're qualified to do the job here. We recruit them as we recruit able-bodied people. We look at their bios as they're applied through our websites. Our recruiters talk to them and interview them, and we make accommodations for them when we want our candidates to come in and talk to our managers as they look for jobs here. One of the great pleasures of mine is that just this month, I am in my fourth year at the firm. I was hired in the firm in June 2016 in order to bring about change when it comes to people with disabilities. And as some of you know, our strategy is very simple, and it focuses on the 4 A's, A's as in apple. So the first A is attitude. What is your approach and acceptance by others in terms of bringing qualified people into the firm to work here? So what we had to do when we put this model together, we had to figure out how to bring people with disabilities into the business and not make other people feel sorry for us. We had to make it clear to managers looking to hire people with disabilities that they are here. You are here as a disabled individual, as a qualified disabled individual, because you have the talent to be here. And what we did at the very beginning, our chairman signed a firm-wide policy letter. And so we had support from the top. And the letter was written more for managers than it was for employees, because we wanted to empower our managers to hire people with disabilities without looking over their shoulders. Many managers are skittish about hiring a person with a disability because they are not sure if they can do the job or if they can do the job as well as an able-bodied person. I can tell you from my 30-plus years of experience of being a quadriplegic, the answer is yes, we can. We can do the job as well as anybody else does, as long as we have the tools and the accommodations we need. And that goes for people who are able-bodied as well. People cannot do the job across the board if they are not supported. Secondly, we look at our employee engagement. And this is one of my favorite statistics when I talk about this. As we promote disability inclusion worldwide to our bank, Chase Manhattan Bank around the world, we have about 250,000 employees in our company. And given our communications approach to this, we talk about this all the time in terms of how do we change the culture. During the 4 years since we started this program, we've hit last year in 2019, 300,000 readers have read our articles on disability inclusion. Now, I know we don't have 300,000 people with disabilities, but this is telling because people are writing our stories about success, about how to get ahead, about people doing the jobs who are disabled as our able-bodied people do, working hand in glove with them to get things done. That's a significant achievement, and our executives are telling us that we are indeed changing the culture. So when we talk about accessibility, which is the second A of the four A's, we talk about technology. And the beauty of this is that we have a 30,000 plus technology organization that's working with the firm to make our accessibility as seamless as possible. What that means is we have an accessibility team we put in place that started 4 years ago, working on ensuring that everything we do is accessible to our blind and our deaf employees who need access to that technology. And I'll tell you a little bit more about CART services in a minute. But right now, our teams are working on the top 25 enterprise applications so that we ensure that people who need to use our systems can get to work on our systems, not only for jobs, but when they put in expenses, when they require education and training. We make sure that our folks around the world have the tools they need. And in a minute, I'll talk to you about some of our CART services that we're doing as well, which is part of accessibility. The second point is that we have a Chase accessibility service team for our customers. And they do everything on the outside for customers, similar to what we're doing on the inside. We also designated a 8th Street branch office in Washington, D.C. last year that opened that was deaf-friendly, meaning deaf people can come in and get serviced by our bankers who do sign language, or we have the technology, and we have Braille on our systems. All this kind of technology to help our deaf and blind people, as well as wheelchair riders, have the access to banks the way everybody else does. And we're looking to expand that concept around the country as we get, more fully involved with this. What was beautiful about our Chase Accessibility Services is that we worked with Gallaudet University in Washington, D.C. to help us put this together. And we are putting some bank branches or terminals near the Gallaudet University so our deaf colleagues there could use our services as well as anybody else. Accommodations is also a big plus when it comes to our folks with disabilities. We have an accessibility team that's called My Accessibility Hub, which provides white glove treatment in the United States and the Philippines to our people with disabilities. These folks deliver technology to people, screen readers, etc., including the ability to deliver captioning to people around the world. We are also going global. We're doing it right now, but it's not formal. It's informal, but it's working out. Finally, on this part, we have an internal sign language interpreter team, CART services, for CART and live closed captioning, just about worldwide. So we don't have people around the world doing this, but we have the ability to go worldwide. This year, our CART captioning team serviced 209 employees regarding their needs for interpretation. Secondly, we would bring in sign language interpretation. We had 172 cases fulfilled with that. We forecast that CART services for the remainder of the year will hit 330 people. The last A is assimilation, which means how do you bring your folks into a culture of equity and equality in terms of the work we do. So we have people on the autism spectrum at work with more than 180 employees now in nearly 40 countries worldwide. We've hired people who are intellectually and developmentally disabled and we called our Business Solutions Team, or BEST. And we're bringing in up to 500 of those folks to help us in real jobs over the next 5 years. So we've really expanded our purview for people that could help our company achieve our goals. And let me tell you, they get the same pay scale as everybody else does, depending on their jobs. We also have a program called This Is Me, which allows people with mental illness to talk about their illness and gain a better understanding of how the firm feels about them and how we feel about our colleagues that are working hard through these disabilities. And believe it or not, these people are in real jobs doing real work, and we're very proud of them. Now, the message I want to leave with you as I close is that more work is needed to assimilate people with disabilities into leadership positions. We've all worked over the last 30 years just to help people get employed, but it's time to look at people with disabilities as leaders. We've made a lot of headway in 30 years, and in fact, accessibility is now the basic cost of entry. It's assumed that accessibility and assimilation and accommodations are here. But we need to do the same thing with leadership. People with disabilities have the same skill sets and qualifications as able-bodied people do. But often, our able-bodied colleagues can't see past the disability, the appearances. So we have to change the status quo and make this era in our common history a better place for future generations. So you may ask, but how do you do that? Well, it starts with you. You as leaders, because we're all here today talking about leadership and disability inclusion, you've got to view yourself and your organization as a builder of leaders, as well as advocating and deliver services to your community. Remember, if you're not confident in your skills and abilities, that's how others will view you and the people you're trying to help. And I know you think of yourselves as leaders, but you've got to spread that word. As an organization, you have to build your network, build meaningful partnerships, lead your constituency group into the future with a leadership mindset. You've got to do more than just help. You've got to groom leaders right from the beginning. And that's how we break down these barriers, by illustrating the way forward for those like us and others not like us. Our opportunity is now. So I'll leave this with you. You have to believe in your leadership qualities to create leaders and to be viewed as leaders. Now all you have to do is make it happen. Thank you for giving me the time to talk to you, and I hope to talk to you soon.